Dynasty the king.
They say that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So on a night where I uncharacteristically found myself rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs against, as a Cowboy fan, my division rival Philadelphia Eagles, I was utterly disappointed when the very handsome Jalen Hurts, who, and Dylan, you can speak to this. Don't you hate how likable Jalen Hurts is as a Cowboys fan?
I do.
He's everything you want in a quarterback.
I mean, he's got the looks, he's got the strength, He's got the leg muscles. You're right. He is poise. A handsome human being, poise. He's just cool. He's even got like he's got like the Houston, like the deep South. I don't like the voice.
A little bit of a Cajun influence too. He likes to cook it up in the kitchen. Listen, America's most eligible quarterback bachelor, we would like off of the Eagles, because even in a game where he only threw for 150 yards, he found a way to not only be fantasy relevant, but also lead his team to a victory over the Chiefs. It was kind of a gross game. You know, we talked about it off screen, like, oh, we were excited for this matchup. And it was a really good game from like a viewership standpoint. But for fantasy, there's some huge names. You're just expecting fireworks, and maybe not expecting, but hoping. You're wanting A.J. Brown to have 150 yards. You're wanting Devontae Smith to catch 2 touchdowns. DeAndre Swift did have a good game. He was a star that showed up. But Travis Kelce, you were hoping for, a 20-point performance, and he had a very disappointing performance as well. So just hitting the highlights here, Jalen Hurts gets it done. I think that's the answer. He feels like the safest quarterback one you can have, because he's never going to completely goose you on a game. He's always going to have at least one tush push, get you a rushing touchdown. Jalen Hurts played well. It was a gross rainy game. You're not worried about his performance. You're not trading him in Dynasty. He's a superstar. Agreed?
Agreed. 100%. Not worried about it.
I do want to touch on Mahomes. The Chiefs started out the game ahead and doing well, running the ball all over the Eagles, which is uncharacteristic of the Eagles defense to give up. They wouldn't stop talking about how the Eagles averaged 66 yards on the ground. And in the first half, the Chiefs were already over 100 yards rushing on the ground. It's very similar to the Super Bowl. So I thought that would be the reason I was talking about Mahomes only throwing for 177 yards. Patrick Mahomes, the face of the NFL, the best quarterback in the league. Can we get this man a receiver? Like, Travis Kelce is doing all he can. He's old. He's got a little gray in the beard. Justin Watson was the target leader at 11 targets. Dropped 6 of them, only had 5 catches.
How do you have 11 targets and only have 5 catches from Patrick Mahomes? 11 Patrick Mahomes targets. You only catch 5?
No drop bigger than the 4th and 25 at the end of the game, where he had a chance to be a hero and just goes right through his hands.
That was just brutal.
I would love, for fantasy purposes, and it's a bit of a lateral move for the player in question, I have been very anti-T. Higgins. But if T. Higgins is going to go anywhere within the conference, if T. Higgins went to the Chiefs, I would actually I would start to believe in the upside for T. Higgins, because that's maybe the only quarterback upgrade or offensive upgrade to a Joe Burrow-led offense that T. Higgins could have. But for Mahomes, that would be a huge relief to see.
Oh, that would be phenomenal. T. Higgins, and if you put T. Higgins with we'll get to him in a second, a Travis Kelce, who is not really Travis Kelce offense, like, there needs to be a one. There needs to be another one, because Travis Kelce cannot do it on his own. He's proven that. And if you put T. Higgins in that offense, oh my God. You can hate on T. Higgins all you want. Part of the issue is he is the number 2 in Cincy.
Yeah.
That is totally fine. But you can't deny the talent. So if he goes to a place like KC with Patrick Mahomes, oh man, that's a recipe that you'd be cooking with gas for sure.
You referenced it already, and we talked before the show, but you keep saying Kelce can't get it done. 7 for 44, still found the end zone. For fantasy, still a fine day. Travis Kelce still not disappointing you. You maybe wanted more. You, before we started the show, was like, we have to talk about Travis Kelce. He looks like he's lost a step. What were you seeing that makes you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, the poor play with Travis Kelce so I say poor play. In Travis Kelce standards, this isn't like a game. Like, you're hoping to get 15 plus from Travis Kelce, right? 15 being the baseline. That's what we're accustomed to. I think before the show you were telling me he had something like 16-point average last year. Like, he's coming off of 3 games in a row now where, I mean, the dude's put together, let's see, he had this week he puts up 12 points. Last week they had a bye. The week before 2 points. The week before 8 points. It's just like, like, are we out of the woods yet? Or this poor play? Like, oh my gosh.
He's 34 years old at this point, and it shows. It doesn't seem like he can get downfield separation. is this the last year of Travis Kelce finishing as the tight end 1 in fantasy in redraft, best ball, any format?
So I think it's layered. I think he's definitely playing through injury. I mean, you saw he went to the sideline limping at one point in the game. So the dude's battling through, and I'm not going to discredit him for being a warrior, but unfortunately for fantasy purposes, it's not good. Like, injury or not, like, we want points scored and expect the players that we expect 15. I mean, 12's not bad, but like the 2-point weeks, the 8-point weeks, and we've seen those more periodically than we're used to. And him being the only option with Mahomes, and he was dropping passes too. And he just seems, I don't know if it is the injuries or if it's I'm sure the
offense
injuries
isn't quite there.
Go with, well, yes, but also like he is older. He's 34 years old.
Well,
so that's just going to play into it. And that's
the discussion to me is that at 34, because in Dynasty, you're probably not unhappy with Kelce all that much because you've probably had him. Most teams have had him for a number of years. Not many teams traded for him this year. Some did, I'm sure. In redraft, he's far more disappointing. If you used a first round pick on Travis Kelce, the 107, the 105, you're really upset because it isn't, you can't have that from your first round pick consistently. But in terms of his future prospects, would you rather have Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews next season?
Probably Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews just being younger.
And I'm not just talking about Dynasty. Let me rephrase that. Just in a redraft setting. Would you rather, because of what you're seeing, would you rather have Kelce or Andrews next year?
I'm not even sure that Kelce comes back next year. If I'm being completely honest, I don't know that he does. I think I don't know. At some point, he's got to call it a career. And why continue to battle through injury? I don't know. If he actually is injured, that's going to be a huge telltale. If they win the Super Bowl again, he's out.
Taylor Swift needs a stay-at-home husband. She's making good money. He can get a sugar mama.
He can travel the world.
She's doing all right.
She's all right.
That's fantastic. Really quickly, DeAndre Swift, we talked about him at the start of the fantasy football season. For dynasty purposes, he was kind of a cautionary tale. He had been all the way up to, I believe it was RB3 years ago, and then he plummeted in value all throughout last season. And he goes to the Eagles. We didn't know what his value was going to be, if it was going to be Rashad Penny. He has researched. He's all the way up to the RB13 in keep trade cut. He's 24 years old. He looked fantastic tonight. When the Eagles needed a big play, they turned to DeAndre Swift, and he was able to show up for them on the ground and also through the air. He had 3 for 31 through the air, 12 for 76 and 1 on the ground. Another great performance for DeAndre Swift. At keep trade cut, running back 13, is he undervalued at this point? Because to me, I feel like he is. I feel like we all have the bad taste of last year. We got to remember that was Detroit Lions DeAndre Swift. Philadelphia Eagles DeAndre Swift looks like a match made in heaven and could be there for the long term.
Yeah, I think I'm taking him probably somewhere up in that top 10 range for me. At this point, do you take him over Eckler in Dynasty? I think you start to consider it. I think you start to consider. I know that sounds crazy, but you have to start considering.
No, that doesn't. In Dynasty, when just like you talked about with Kelce, when you start to see the production taper off with age, because of age, it's not like Eckler's in his prime anymore youth-wise. He's a 28-year-old running back. Yeah. I think he turns 29 this year. Swift is still 24 years old. He'll be 25 in January.
Oh he's only 24. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying. So Javonte Williams, I'd probably rather have Javonte Williams, but that's the kind of tier running back he's in. Obviously, Bijan McCaffrey. Give me Swift. Give me Swift. Okay. Yeah. That's a tough one. If Jacobs resigns.
I would take Swift, and I think just the offense that Swift's in. He didn't have a whole lot of tread on his tires. I know he battled injury early on, but the way that Philly's using him, he's staying fresh, and he's taking a bulk of the carries and getting a lot of the targets and whatnot. But they're still mixing in Gainwell and Boston Scott, and he's still being uber efficient. So this is what we wanted to see from him in Detroit, right? Is that efficiency, and we're starting to see that in this offense.
Yeah, no, they're giving him high value touches, and it just seems like a perfect offense for him. You don't need to give him 20 plus carries, and he's still going to produce fantasy greatness. Someone you can give 20 plus touches to, Isiah Pacheco, the little engine that could. And I know he's not a small back, but when he runs, you get that Speedy Gonzalez from the Looney Tunes, or the road runner. His feet are just doing the most. He's always doing the most when he's running. He had a very good day on the ground for the Chiefs. Didn't necessarily translate to fantasy goodness because he didn't find the end zone. He didn't catch that many passes, but 19 for 89 on the ground. Pacheco is RB19 on keep trade cut right now. Is that a buy, a sell, a hold? To me, he's one of the most perplexing names. It's I'm happy if I have him. I don't know that there's much more upside, but I also feel like he's got a super high floor. Like Rachaad White's having a better season, but Pacheco feels like he's got more stability around him.
I actually like Rachaad White more than Pacheco. I think he's
I agree.
I agree
in terms of upside.
This is the one time I'll agree with KTC. I think RB19 is actually pretty good for Pacheco. Flirting around that RB 15 to 20 range sounds about right for him. Like the highest he should go is 15. Did you know he's 24 years old, just like DeAndre Swift?
This is his second year.
Yeah,
gosh, Swift came in so young.
He came in early, and Pacheco was a senior when he came out of Rutgers. So
right. Yeah, I get the feeling Pacheco is like, and I'm not saying that he is, but could he just be another like James Robinson? You know what I mean? Like
no. He's
not
a
like
much
a bust,
running
but
back.
a 2-year. Listen, they talked in the draft about drafting Jahmyr Gibbs, right? They alluded to they thought Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be the GM for the Chiefs came out and said that they thought certain weapons were going to be there at pick 32, and everyone found out it was Jahmyr Gibbs. He was super high on their board. They were trying to draft another running back. Pacheco's a 7th round draft pick. Not a whole lot of loyalty to him moving forward.
Yes, but I think what they're drafting or what they're wanting is someone that can fill that McKinnon role that's younger. Because McKinnon, he's
Clyde
31 years old. Yeah, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? They've kind of done that experiment. I think they're looking for someone because if you look at the game and pay attention to the game, Pacheco's only in between the 20s. When it gets into the red zone or during third down or 2-minute drills, it's McKinnon.
Pacheco gets mixed in the red zone.
He gets some of the carries in the red zone. Yeah, but a lot of what you see is between it's most of the time it's McKinnon. So I think it's definitely a down a 2-minute drill kind of running back.
No, that makes complete sense. Last I want to touch on, first of all, AJ Brown had a stinker of a game, but you're not worried about AJ Brown.
No.
It was a weird game. The targets were there. Devontae Smith, 6 for 99, had the catch of the game. I would say the play of the game that's put the Eagles in a position to take the lead and ultimately win. With Dallas Goedert out, this is reminiscent of last season. Devontae Smith was a league winner last year. He went on a tear. It was like wide receiver 5, wide receiver 8, wide receiver 12, like week to week last year, all because Dallas Goedert was out. Dallas Goedert is out this year. I think we're going to see a lot of the same. If you held on to Devontae Smith, didn't panic trade him for picks or something throughout the year, Devontae Smith, to me, he looks, he smells, he seems like he will be a league winner in redraft and in Dynasty. It's hard to trade for a young wide receiver. They're not easily acquirable. Yes. But if you have him, congratulations. I think it's going to be a fun end to the season.
Yeah, because you're not trading for Devontae Smith without letting go of it first. And I just, depending, I don't know if you want to or can do that. But I think this situation, the AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith is very similar to the Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, where it's Justin Jefferson's offense, it's AJ Brown's offense. But obviously the Chiefs had a plan to shut down AJ Brown. They had a plan to do so, which is why you saw Devontae Smith do what he did. But I think in that offense, I think when Goddard's out, Devontae Smith is going to go off, and when Goddard's in, you just got to wonder whose game it's going to be.
It's funny. It's also like with the 49ers, like when one of Debo, Kittle, or Ayuk is out, you really start the other two with complete confidence. So. One of the best offenses in the league, really both of the offenses in this game are two of the best in the league. Good, fun Monday Night Football game, but I wanted more fantasy fireworks. In the spirit of keeping things completely and totally unnecessarily deep, there's so many parallels between the very, very first Thanksgiving and this fantasy season. Dylan, I know we have talked, it feels like every time we hop on after a primetime game, there is major either bad breaks, like this player didn't perform the way I wanted to. Like I remember coming on here after a bad Justin Fields outing and just being like, crap. Or more, pressing was all the injuries we've come on. I mean, this last Thursday being a prime example, losing Joe Burrow and Mark Andrews for the year not only decimated their value, but the players that they buoy, Lamar Jackson for Andrews and Joe Burrow. It feels like we shouldn't have a reason to be thankful, right? It's been a very, very difficult season. But you know what? Football is here, and I'm super, super happy. And if you actually look back at the first Thanksgiving, Dylan, did you know that when the Pilgrims, that was a dramatic pause there. I was really just letting you, I was hoping.
I was like, was he wanting me to say something or?
I was like, that was. Did you know, Dylan?
I was like,
I needed more emphasis. Yeah, no, I needed more emphasis. Like, gotcha, I want to know more.
Dramatic effect. Let's try that again. Let's try that again.
For sure. Yeah, I did a lot of historical research for this. Okay, Dylan, Did you know that the very first Thanksgiving was actually the second year of the Pilgrims arriving in Plymouth? Do you know what they did the first year?
No, I don't know what they did. I was going to make a joke, but now I can't even think of something.
The very first, well, it was really the first winter that they got there. They had to stay on the boat, and literally half of them died. Half of them completely disappointed the team, let everyone down, and were useless. And they, well, not useless, they people, but like they
geez.
died. Well, no, but if you're trying to set up a town, you're trying to like, hey, I need farmers and fishers and thatchers and all these things.
Carry on with your history lesson.
Have you ever played Age of Empires? Have you ever played?
Your dork level is going way up.
It's not dork level because I know human history. Oh my lord!
What'd you say? Empires of
Age of, it was like a computer. It was like an early Age of Empires. It was like an early computer game, like everyone played growing up. It was like RuneScape. It was like one of those things.
Yeah.
Dylan, we will not go here. We will not go here. So much we can touch. Let me get to the point. If you look at the top 12 of redraft, literally half of the top picks in fantasy this year, in just normal redraft, all the big names are busts or injured and out for the season. Very similar to the Mayflower. But you know what? After a year of just making it through and getting to a place of survival, the Pilgrims and the Indians that they had made relationship with came together to celebrate Thanksgiving. So as we enter this Thanksgiving season, Dylan, let us remember those we've lost and appreciate all the more those that are actually here. So Dylan and I are going to be sharing the things we're thankful for. I'll jump out right away. I am thankful for a player who's actually not available right now.
Bravo for your history lesson, bro. Bravo.
Thank you.
You did your research. You presented it. Bravo. You made one weird Clash of Clans reference, but other than that, bravo. Bravo.
You brought Clash of Clans into this, not me. All I'm saying is this. Fantasy football pertains to real life. You know what? And the early Pilgrims would have been as inspired by us setting our lineups as after crazy injuries, after losing Nick Chubb, choosing to go and chase a championship. If you're listening to this and that's you, good for you. You're just like your ancestors who founded this great country, okay? Find a reason to be thankful this November. It's the same thing. So you know who I'm thankful for, Dylan? The first person and the first thing I'm thankful for this holiday season is Aaron Rodgers. And you want to know why I'm thankful for a guy who has a torn Achilles and is not yet returned? He is single-handedly keeping Garrett Wilson's keep trade cut dynasty value alive, because without the hope of Aaron Rodgers coming back to the Jets next year, Garrett Wilson, who I have shares of literally everywhere. I don't have him in Yacht Club. I'm going to try to get a deal done with Davis at some point to go get him. But Garrett Wilson, dude, the Jets are such a dumpster fire. There's a stat going around. It had been 40.
Boyle.
Tim Boyle has been named the starter. Yeah.
Does it get any more generic than Tim Boyle?
Dude, Zach Wilson's done. Zach Wilson.
You got replaced by Tim Boyle. That's terrible. Like,
not just that, having that on your resume. He's not the backup either. They've listed him as the third string. Dude, Zach Wilson has been atrocious. The Jets hadn't scored a touchdown until Brees Hall did for 40 possessions. It was absolutely brutal. This entire season should absolutely tank a player's value. Garrett Wilson was all the way up to wide receiver 3 in keep trade cut. He was entering the Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase category, and Rodgers tore his Achilles. And then everything you've seen since just confirms you can be an incredible player with a horrible situation. But thankfully, the future, there's still hope that Aaron Rodgers returns and Garrett Wilson turns into the fantasy superstar we've all hoped for.
I just had to go check. Garrett Wilson did finish in Yacht Club with negative points.
Oh, yeah. In almost every league.
In every league. In all my leagues.
He fumbled. Yeah, it's been bad, man. And he's super talented, and he's fighting through injury. But here's my question to you, Dylan. I'm thankful for Aaron Rodgers, but with Aaron Rodgers does come a risk. There's been reports almost confirming for sure that the Jets are going to trade for Davante Adams in the offseason. So my question is, how much does that affect his value? Does that tank his value? Should I not be thankful, essentially? Is that kind of, a Trojan horse, if you will?
If the Jets go and acquire Davante Adams, it doesn't help Garrett Wilson's value by any means. I think it knocks him for sure out of that top. I mean, in the offseason with Rodgers, he was top 4.
Wide
right?
receiver
He was
3.
up there.
He was wide receiver 3.
3. That's 3. He was anywhere between 3 to 5, right? Now I don't know what he is on KTC, but for me, he's probably
wide receiver
lower.
7 right now. So
I'm still wide receiver 7. That's insane.
Without Rodgers,
it's literally
I think
Aaron Rodgers. It's literally Aaron Rodgers. But if they bring Devontae Adams in, he is a wide receiver 2. Like Garrett Wilson goes down to a wide receiver 2 for me. Like,
Are you sure?
Yes, to me, for production wise, yes, I'm going to value him as bro. It's Devontae Adams. Like, I understand, and they still have Breece Hall. Like, they're still going to run the ball. They still have a good. Do you
remember
defense.
those years before Jordy Nelson went to the Raiders, where Devontae Adams had become the one, especially because Jordy had missed a year off a torn ACL.
Yeah,
he supported them both. I think that. I don't know.
But we're talking about that was vintage Rodgers. Like, Rodgers is still old. Like, he's still old. He's still coming off an Achilles. Like, I don't think he's going to come back and just be Rodgers of 5 years ago even, right? So I expect the production to go down, and I don't know that he'll support 2 top-tier wide receivers. And so, to me, it would take Garrett Wilson taking a hit. Devontae Adams will probably be valued as a wide receiver too as well, just because of age, right? And so, I'm not saying it's going to crater Garrett Wilson's value, not at all, but it will definitely take a hit for sure.
It's crazy. Without Aaron Rodgers, if you think about it, Garrett Wilson might be valued the same way Drake London is. And I think Garrett Wilson has shown more on the field than Drake London has, but it's just there's these great young wide receivers who make great plays in horrible situations. But I'm thankful for you, A-Rod. Please stay there because Zach Wilson is absolutely a nightmare. Dylan, what's the first thing you're thankful for?
Yes, I don't have an elaborate Mayflower compact for you guys. That being, what was it? Something I forgot.
You always take shots at me for being nerdy and a dork. You are just as it is all of a facade because you are just as nerdy and just as dorkish about certain things. I told you I was going to talk about the Mayflower. He's like, you're talking about the Mayflower compact. I'm like, what is theMayflower compact, Dylan? You're like, it's the contract they signed. I'm like, oh. So who's nerdy now?
That is fair. Yes, that is fair. Anyways, I don't have an elaborate, Clash of Clans reference for you guys, but what I'm thankful for is this 2024 draft class. Let me tell you why. Not only is it loaded with quarterbacks, not only is it loaded for wide receivers, but in Yacht Club, because my season is over and was over, honestly, when it started, but officially 2 weeks ago. When I decided to sell off the rest of what I could to get capital, I just made another trade tonight with Mike that we'll talk about later that accrued even more capital.
Deck, yeah.
I've got about 7 second-round picks, first-round pick, and some other picks to play with. And I'm just thankful because aside from just selfishly for my team, if you look across the NFL, we've got Tim Boyle starting this week. Is it Tommy or Danny DeVito? Which is Tommy?
It's Tommy DeVito. No, it's easy. DeVito. It's easy to get it confused. Yeah,
It's a common name. Tommy DeVito. We had Zach Wilson starting for most of the season. You've got Josh Dobbs, like whatever Kenny Pickett is, whether you blame it on the offense or whatever. My point is we've had all these quarterbacks go down with injury. All these quarterbacks that have thrusted their backups into play, and this quarterback class that's coming in with 24, I mean, everyone knows about Caleb Williams and Drake May and Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, who's balling out, right? And of course, you're going to have those risers that rise through the draft process. Spencer Rattler, who's going to the Senior Bowl. So you're going to have these guys come out of nowhere, right? And I think that's going to replenish these backup jobs. And these are some talented guys. Like, these are talented quarterbacks that need a little development. It's a bummer that Jordan Travis went down. Which, did you see that, bro?
I did, man. I looked it up because you said something. Quarterback for Florida State, for the listeners who aren't aware. Great QB, one of the most underrated prospects, not just in the draft, but in college football, because Florida State was like the quietest 4 seed,
Yes. They were disrespectful. In everyone's projections, they had him outside of the playoff. And I'm like, gosh. What's some respect? Anyways, he's another one of those talented quarterbacks. He'll still be coming out, but obviously that leg injury is going to set him back. And then you go to the wide receiver position. Everyone knows about Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, I want to pause real quick. I love what you said. I want to make one quick point. Coming to replenish backup QB jobs. We have only had a 17-game season for I think 2 seasons now. We're seeing backup QBs be more prevalent and relevant. We might be seeing Drew Lock on Thursday Night Football because Geno Smith. Or not Thursday Night Football on Thanksgiving. Well, it's Thursday. It's not the same thing. It's Thursday, but it's not Thursday night. Backup QBs are more relevant. Gardner Minshew starting for the Colts right now. Getting not just for NFL teams on your dynasty roster, there's going to be a lot of second and third round picks that are speculative QBs that if the right situation happens, Josh Dobbs is having a very fantasy relevant season. He was literally on dynasty waivers. And so
Sam Howell was a third round pick in our rookie
draft. That's what I'm saying. And so you stashing these guys, Hendon Hooker, we thought this season would have been someone that was interesting to stash and hide. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Great point. So I love that you brought that up because it really is a changing NFL. And as a dynasty managers, we need to be rostering backup QBs more so than even the NFL. Because if Brock Purdy last year, he hits, he becomes relevant. It's a good point.
Thank you for elaborating on that. That's a great point. And that's the point I was making.
That you brought that up.
It's going to replenish that. And it's a key for you dynasty players. Like if you have third and fourth round picks in this draft in particular, they're going to have value because of how many quarterbacks and wide receivers, running backs are going to get pushed and just the depth of those positions. You never know. Like Davis Mills had value for 2 seasons and he was a third round pick, right?
You know what's crazy? Before the season started in a league I'm in, or not before the season started, like I didn't want to trade for Aiden O'Connell with Mike in Yacht Club when I had Jimmy G because I don't want to give up a 4th round for him. And then I was also looking at my roster and I think it was Jason Brownlee, who I'd acquired in a different trade. I was like, I don't want to drop a speculative Jason Brownlee for Aiden O'Connell. It was like seriously a thought process. Our thinking needs to change in Superflex leagues. Like
100%.
Anytime you need to be rostering 5-6 QBs, especially in deeper leagues.
With how the season has gone, yes, you absolutely. We never prepare for injury. We never expect injury by any means, but we always prepare for injury, but we never expect it or,
Tyson Bagent. Like, dude, there's just so many.
That's what I'm saying. Tyson Bagent, like literally Aiden O'Connell, we just went through so many
Get those
names.
guys out there.
And I can guarantee
these other backup QBs.
These guys coming in are more talented. I'm not going to guarantee you they'll be more productive, but they are more talented. So, I mean, we'll see when they get on the field. So, jumping over to the wide receiver position, it's a similar case where, I mean, the top of the food chain, right, and wide receivers is locked, right? You've got Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown are pretty much locked in the top 4, right? After that, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I was going to say Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'll give that to him. He'll be 5. Tyreek Hill is still top. I think Tyreek Hill and then Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, anyways, and then you go.
I put Amon-Ra in the top 3. I don't want to get lost there. Sorry,
3.
Yeah, I think KTC has him there as well.
No.
He's so consistent, man.
You can't get him over AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb.
I wouldn't go over CD to be honest, but Keep Trade Cut I think has him at wide receiver 3, and then it's CD and they're all a tier for me. You could rearrange AJ,
so let's just call it the top 6 to 7 wide receivers are pretty much set, right? Whatever order, and then after that, like you've got like the Drake Londons and like we talked about Garrett Wilson and some of those guys, but this wide receiver class coming in, the wide receiver 2s, even like T Higgins, we saw him. He was a wide receiver 1 at the beginning of the season. Again, I don't know what he is in KTC, but like his value has dropped. He's no longer in that top 10
He was as high as wide receiver 13 on Keep Trade.
I'm pretty sure he's a wide receiver 2 now, like value wise on Keep Trade Cut, which is correct. But the point I'm making is like we talked about, we know Marvin Harrison Jr. If you don't know, he's the wide receiver, generational wide receiver that's coming out of Ohio State. He's going to be phenomenal. Top 3 pick, maybe 2. Some people you can argue 2 in your rookie drafts. And then you've got Keon Coleman behind him. For me, now Keon Coleman and Malik Neighbors is a tie. Keon Coleman's, if we just talked about Jordan Travis, Keon Coleman is the wide receiver out of Florida State. And then we've got Malik Neighbors out of LSU. Phenomenal guy. He's incredible. Xavier Leggett, Xavier Worthy. Like there's so many names that can go on in this class. And it's just like Roman Wilson at Michigan. Like there's so many wide receivers that are, once again, going to replenish this wide receiver depth that we love so much. I personally love building a team around wide receivers because they're so interchangeable, right? You're going to have, as
long as they're not named Puka Nacua. Other than that,
we're not going to talk about Puka Nacua.
You're such a hater.
I honestly may have to eat crow on that one because Cooper Kupp is, I think he might be toast with the ankle injury. So anyways, I'm thankful for that 24 class that's coming in. I'm thankful for the draft picks that I have. And I want to ask you guys, go and acquire some picks, even if they're thirds and fourths. Like I said, this year.
You want to tell the listeners, hey, you're not asking.
I got to ask them. No, you know what? I'm going to tell them. You're right.
Yeah, you were telling them. You were like, I'm going to ask you, go do this thing.
Go
and
do this. Go and, I don't know why I'm asking you guys. Go and get some picks, and you won't regret it. You will be thankful. I'm trying to be polite, bro. It's a Southern.
That's what I'm saying. That's that manager everyone has at work that's like super. It's like, I phrased it as a question, but you will be here at 8 p.m. and you will close the door. Like, hey, I wanted to ask you, are you okay with coming in for the holidays? Because if you don't, you're fired. I just wanted to ask it. Like,
that's fair. That is fair. That is fair. But yes, 24 class. Josh, what else are you thankful for?
I'm so glad you asked, Dylan. So much to be thankful for. You know, you got to really
hold on. Do we need to go on commercial break and prep people? Or are you going to give another elaborate roll in or
do an intermission?
And we'll be back after this 5-minute interlude from Josh.
Did you guys know the Ottoman Empire took Constantinople? Suleiman II. I could riff. I could go there. I could start talking about Rhodes and Malta and the Knights of St. John the Baptist.
I want to know how many of our people actually just fast forwarded through that. Like, oh, Josh is about to.
No one. No. I know a good portion of listeners are here for just Walshisms of how random thought processes. I am that guy you approach. Like, how often have you thought about the Roman Empire? I'm like, how many times today or this week? It's just me.
It's true.
Something I looked, and I mentioned this in previous episodes, kind of way too deeply at, because I was feeling it just in my lineups. I have one league where I have a lot of tight end depth, and I was super excited. I talked about it. I wanted to do a deep dive on tight ends because it feels like this year tight ends have been more relevant than they have in previous seasons. Turns out they totally have been. I am thankful for this year's, now I don't want to say tight end class, but like all of this year's tight ends. We have been spoiled. So last year, Travis Kelce had an incredible year. He averaged 16.5 fantasy points per game. This is just on a per game average. So there were some players in there that higher on the per game average, but they missed some time, like a Darren Waller. He was still in the top 12. But if you look at the total points scored, Travis Kelce had 270, and then second place was TJ Hawkinson at 170. Like, it was a massive gap. There just wasn't relevant starters. Most importantly, when you took the top 12 points per game guys, and I'm also bringing this up because we were laughing about it on the screen when Matthew Berry came on the show, was talking about like, yeah, should I trade for TJ Hawkinson? I'm like, nah, don't trade for Hawkinson. Like, the next week, Hawkinson's going off.
He's never asking us for advice again.
Well, maybe not. But there was numbers to go with my point, because Hawkinson, he was only fourth in points per game last year. But the top 12 tight ends total in points per game averaged 8.9 points per game last season. Do you want to know what the top 12 are averaging this year, Dylan?
I'm going to say it's higher. I'm going to go 10.2.
Very close. It was 9.9. Oh. And this doesn't include, I mean, here's who's not in the top 12 right now. Trey McBride. I was going to also say, Dalton Kincaid. These are guys that are having really great second halves of the season, breaking out because either a player in front of them got injured or a quarterback returned. In McBride's case, that was both. You have breakouts at the rookie in Laporta and Kincaid, who I've already mentioned. Luke Musgrave also looks really good. And this is all going on with Travis Kelce having a down year. You know, he was averaging, as I mentioned earlier, 16.5 points per game. He's only averaging 14 right now, and it's probably going to go down even further. There's like so many more guys averaging 12 plus. George Kittle is having a resurgent season. So the tight end position has not only been viable to start in your tight end spot. You're not only more happy with what you throw in the tight end slot, but for me, you're able to put them in additional flex spots. Cole Kmet has saved me so many times this season in Dynasty leagues. Jake Ferguson has been refreshing. And the only one who's still letting us down for some reason is Kyle Pitts. So I think I'm really thankful for tight ends, but I'm also thankful that the position itself is changing. These guys are being treated more and more like slot receivers, and it's fun and it's exciting. It just gives us more players to put into our lineups, and it's just fun because more points scored makes me a happy guy. You may not think 8.9 points versus 9.9 makes a difference, but if you add it up at 12 players times 16 games, let me see how many more fantasy points would be scored real quick. Let me do some quick math.
Let me just...
That's 192 more fantasy points available to you and your rosters this season. You're welcome, America. Tight ends are here.
Listen, I love that. That's great. And I think the tight end position definitely as a whole, like you said, is seeing a resurgence, which is nice because for the longest time, we know in Yacht Club, we don't have any premium on the tight end. So like it was hard to justify even really building around tight ends. But like you're seeing, like you said, aside from the top ones of Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, you're seeing Njoku step up. So Laporta, the rookie, Kincaid the rookie, Trey McBride, who's not a rookie, but he's coming in. Like you're seeing these guys add value.
Jake Ferguson, who I mentioned.
Jake Ferguson, like it's just
Cole
so
Kmet.
refreshing to see these guys and actually have that position. Now, and Yacht Club, one of the guys kind of got ahead of the curve, and he's got quite a few of those tight ends on his team, right? And so that was smart. But I mean, even like I've been able to plug in Jonnu Smith, obviously, who has had some weeks that have been fantasy relevant. And even this past week, I put in Tremble because I just picked someone up because my tight end was on bye, and Tremble had 7 points for me. Like that's nice to get from your tight end position, right? He just had a touchdown.
If I got 4 points from my tight end last year, like at certain weeks, I'm like, oh, thank goodness he didn't goose me. This year, you know, Logan Thomas is another great example. It's he on a points per game, he's not crazy high, but he's had these week-winning weeks where he scored you double-digit fantasy points just because of matchups. So the tight end, and by the way, Taysom Hill has been so fun. I have him in best ball in so many places.
He's so
annoying,
cheap.
Man.
I forget about even talking about him with tight ends because he literally just does everything.
So it's because it's really when you get to a certain place in Dynasty, there's only so many great wide receivers you can trade for that are reasonable and you can trust every week. There's only so many running backs. That's an even scarcer position. The tight ends, man, you can build around tight ends. I would be interested to see if you don't, in super flex startups, if you don't start to see a run on like the, you know, round 10, round 9, round 8, if you start seeing people stack up like 3 or 4 of those guys and put them in flexes. I know I've done it this season. So I'm thankful for tight ends. It's nice to have a new position on the block. And that even without premium.
Do not reach on tight ends.
No.
Do not reach. Like you don't have to get Pitts in the 3rd. There's way too many good wide receivers to get Pitts in the 3rd. Or like if anything, even like in a dynasty startup, don't worry about. I don't know if people still do that, just don't.
No, if anything, my research, what I would tell them is that the gap is closing, and Kelce being in a tier above himself, we already talked about him tonight, that's kind of not happening anymore. Andrews, I think from a value perspective, people aren't going to see him. He's got great upside still next year, but because of his age and injury history, I don't think Andrews is worth taking. I would much rather have Sam Laporta than Andrews if I'm building from the ground up.
Let me ask you this. In what round are you taking your first tight end?
In a dynasty startup?
In a dynasty startup.
Man, I would just wait for the 5th, man. There's just a lot of guys. Like, I'd be happy leaving the draft with Ferguson and Njoku. You know what I mean? Like, so the earliest I would go is the 5th round. If
you
Laporta is
those guys in the 5th.
No, I'm saying the earliest I would go is the 5th round. Yeah, no, I would be happy just punting it because there's just more guys that you can start. And also with Brock Bowers entering the draft and the position changing as a whole, this isn't
that's
only
another
the
position
top 2 guys.
That's low key kind of sneaky. You've got Brock Bowers, Jaheim Bell, Jatavion Sanders. Like there's some good tight ends coming in too. So yeah, that's.
I am equally as thankful for the 24 draft because I do have some capital there. But Dylan, I've talked enough about tight ends, Turkey and the Mayflower. What is the second thing that you're thankful for this Thanksgiving season?
Yeah, man. One of the things that I'm thankful for, and I'll keep it short, I'll keep it brief and brilliant because we'll elaborate on it. But I'm just thankful for amazing trade partners, like great trade partnerships, people that you get along with so well. And anytime you do business, it is just so easy, so smooth. You speak each other's love languages. You know what? I'm hitting
this
at
is
Mike,
a Michael
right?
Smith
I'm hitting
thing.
at Michael Smith. Like we need to write a book on like, you know how there's so many relationship books out there about dating and we need to write a relationship book about this is how you're trade partners. And it would be a top seller. Like, you know how many bad trade partners there are out there, bro? Like I talk to people on the daily in all the various leagues that I'm in, and I get so frustrated because I'm like, you guys are not empathy. You're not listening to me. What is the number one thing in relationships? You need to listen. Josh, you're married. Communication and listening. Me and Mike, we got that. We are the perfect trade marriage. Okay. We negotiated a trade earlier. Like I said, we'll talk about in below deck. We negotiated a trade earlier. It's literally like clockwork for us. We know how to communicate with each other. We know how to not waste each other's time. And it's just like whenever you can go into a conversation and listen, I'm going to get so much flack. I know they're going to be like, oh my God, Big Mike Smith guy. I'm like, oh my God. I don't care. I'm going to
do you one worse.
I don't care.
We're both churchgoers. Okay. Dylan and I, we're both men of faith. There is this trope in the American charismatic evangelical church where a visiting pastor will get up and the first thing they'll say is, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm so-and-so. In the front row is my smoking hot wife. She is so much better. You are doing the smoking hot wife trope about your trade partner, Mike Smith. You know what's the best thing about my dynasty team? The people I play with.
when you've got a good thing, if you flaunt it, you got it, bro. Or if you got it, you flaunt it, right? So you know what?
That's fair.
We've got a good thing going. Josh, you and I are good trade partners. We've had some good. We know how to listen. A good trade partner doesn't necessarily even mean you get a lot of deals done. That's just mine and Mike's relationship. We get a lot of deals done because of the rapport that we've built. You and I are good trade partners because even when we don't get a deal done, it's not frustrating. We're not disrespecting each other and getting frustrated, right? There's some people out there, and I know you're listening. You're going to be out in the chat. You are horrible to deal with. I don't want to talk to you because you come at me sideways, and then when I tell you no, it gets all ugly, and then we go downhill from there. So having a great trade partner, trade relationships is important, man. It's important.
No, well, here's what I would say too. Like, it takes time with people you don't know. Like, if you go into a league and you know like 5 of the 12 guys in there, those 5 are going to be the ones you initially get trades done with, right? Because you kind of know what they're looking for. I don't mind at all if you and I, George Pickens is a great example, completely disagree on what a player is, as long as you are consistent about that take and it doesn't magically change when nothing has happened. Like, yeah, okay, when George Pickens becomes a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, probably the best ever, you'll agree. Like, you're a reasonable guy. What I can't stand is the gaslighting. That happens in Dynasty way too much. Like, I never said that. I never thought that. Like, I sent out a trade. I sent out a trade to a team in Yacht Club for Justin Fields. This is weeks and weeks ago when I was still nervous. Like, he hadn't gone off for 40 points one time. I just reacquired him from Davis. And it was for Kenny Pickett, Romeo Dobbs, a first and a second. Like, and Justin Fields, and I think something else.
And I was just about to put
and
they
were like, I was like, hey, you say you're making a push right now. Like, this is a win now quarterback. This was an expansion team. So I was like, okay, hey. They were like, Fields isn't elite at all. Kenny Pickett's our guy. Bro, they are trying, fast forward 3 weeks, they are throwing Kenny Pickett and be like, hey, any interest? You know,
they literally posted our league today. They're like, just trying to get a 25 first for Pickett. Good luck.
No, and I responded because I own all the 25 first. I was like, it ain't gonna happen, bro. Like, I am 25 first. You ain't getting one, dude.
Like, yes. So bringing it back, I'm thankful for it. Yes, Michael Smith, for many reasons, mostly because we're great trade partners, but also just in general. Like, throughout my leagues, I've got partners that I know. Like, I know guys that I can go and talk to that'll be reasonable. If you're an unreasonable person, shame on you. I hope you get Cole for Christmas, because that is not good. It is horrible to deal with you guys, and I hope you know that.
No, I can't stand also when players aren't aware of like, hey, if I call you and you've just lost Joe Burrow for the season, don't act like it doesn't affect you whatsoever. like don't do that. Like, this isn't the show Billions or what was the other one I loved? Succession. You're not posturing. Like, we all saw what happened. Your team took a hit. Yes. Okay, acknowledge it and be like, you know what, man, I'm confident and I'm going to move forward. It does suck. Don't be like, I don't even care, bro. It's totally fine. Jake Browning's going to get the same production. Like, stop it.
Yeah, seriously.
So,
no,
it's
but
it's good,
the side note, the same manager that you were talking about, they came to me for Trey McBride. They're like, you interested in Trey McBride? I'm like,
they were selling you Trey McBride.
Yeah, I was like, sure, I'd started, I was like, I'll do a second. I'd do a second for Trey McBride. And he calls me, doesn't even respond to my text, calls me and goes, was that a serious offer? I was like, yeah. He's like, bro, I was like, what would you guys want? He's like, well, you've got our 24 second and you've got another 24 second. And then you've also got our third. I'm like, what do you think? Who do you think Trey McBride is? No, I'm not paying. I don't care. We can talk about this, sure, but I'm not paying 2 seconds.
2 seconds for Trey McBride, I don't hate.
This
depending
team,
on the
they're second.
It's like the 203.
Yes. I would rather just. Why
would you rather have Trey McBride in a second or Dalton Schultz in a second or Trey McBride? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Because that was another guy I didn't bring up in the tight end segment.
I don't need to win games right now.
Yeah, no, that's more the point. So, yeah, good trade partners, they are difficult to find. Well, we are going to take a quick break. When we go below deck, we want to get the details, Dylan, of the most recent trade of this special trade relationship that makes us believe that love is still alive and there's a chance for all of us to have incredible trade partners no matter the league that we're in. So you and Mike are launching a book on healthy marital, forgive me, not marriage, really. It's a seminar on trade partners.
We can do that too.
And how you two can have trade partners like this for only 5 easy payments of $5.99 and or a 24 first.
Yes, make it a great trade relationship or not. The choice is yours.
I love that. I love that.
That's our slogan.
Listen, we're jumping below deck here. So here's the thing. Here's where Dylan got that statement. Make it a great whatever or not. The choice is yours. That was our assistant principal in junior high. He would do the school announcements every morning and had this thick Texas drawl. Like, make it a great day or not. The choice is yours. You used to make fun of him and every other school teacher or faculty member, like
Make
all
you seem
the time.
like a degenerate.
And 10 to 15 years later, here you are quoting it on a podcast.
Quoting him. Shout out Mr. Emery.
Shout out Mr. Emery. Shout out Mike Smith. You and him get a deal done. Mike is in a playoff window, right? You've already talked famously how things didn't go your way. And so you continue to load his team with the best players you have available to guarantee his playoff run is long and glorious. I don't know what I'm more concerned about. It was a good trade, by the way. I think it made sense. But I think you have projected a lot on this show. It's been very Freudian. You have accused me of like, I love George Pickens too much. I love Justin Fields too much.
Yeah.
This is a scene. I've never actually seen the movie Brokeback Mountain, but I do know the quote. I just can't quit you. Is that what you said to Christian Kirk? Is that what you said to Christian Kirk as you welcomed him back on your roster? You just whispered softly in his ear, Mike's my best trade partner, and I just can't quit you. Christian Kirk and a second. Christian Kirk and the 201, 99% sure it's the 201 for DK Metcalf, just so we get to the actual trade. Christian Kirk, 2024 201 for DK Metcalf. Makes sense for you getting that 201. You said 7 picks now in 2024 in the second round.
Yeah, in the second round. Yeah, 7 picks, and there was a fourth in there. Don't forget about that. There was a fourth in there.
Oh, you threw him back and forth.
I threw back and forth, which is going to be the 401. But yeah, man, I think so. Again, going back to the art of a deal, me and Mike, we have this ongoing relationship. He calls me earlier. I missed his call. I call him back. He goes, "Yeah, man, I'm itching. I'm itching to make a move. Like, I really feel like I can go for it." And like you said, like his team, he's got a really good team. Like he does have a chance. We talked about Davis. He's got a tank of a team, sure. But when it comes to really 2 through 7, it's somewhat open. It's pretty open. And Mike's team has proven like he's got Dak Prescott, CJ Stroud starting. And then he just needed some more firepower. And so this trade made sense for him. What I told him after we did the deal was me trading DK Metcalf is because he's giving me points, sure, but he doesn't help me win now. I don't need to win now. So him getting DK helps him win now. The 201 was not helping him win now. That doesn't help him win a championship.
I think it's also important to examine, Christian Kirk and DK Metcalf for the next 2 years might flip their season finish, right? DK Metcalf has had a disappointing season so far. But if you look at the Jags' end-of-season schedule, they've got to still play the Ravens and Cleveland during fantasy playoffs. Mm-hmm. I don't want that matchup. Also, when Zay Jones is back, Calvin Ridley seems to do more, so
that whole
there's a
thing
whole thing there. But the Seahawks have a juicy finish to the year, and it seems like they're going to be in, fighting for a playoff spot. So they're going to need to, well, not that the Jags wouldn't be, but DK's got a good schedule.
Yeah, I was hesitant at first to trade away DK because of him being a young wide receiver. I think he's 25. Him being a younger wide receiver, and he's just starting to pick up. He was injured to begin the season. He's dealing with a hip injury kind of off and on. In the last 2 weeks, we've seen him come on. This past week was his biggest week that he's had all season. And so I was hesitant to give him away, but at the same time, I couldn't pass up. The main reason I did that deal was for the 201. Yes, I love Christian Kirk, and I still think – I was telling Mike too, Christian Kirk is also not an older wide receiver. He's still 26, 27 years old, and he's someone I can still build around, and I still like him as a wide receiver. I think he's still a solid wide receiver too.
You have defended Christian Kirk more than anyone else on this show.
He's
that's a separate thing. But
he's the only Aggie that I will ever defend.
That's a lie. You've defended Devon Achane. So
dang it, Devon Achane.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
That's true. That's true.
No, DK Metcalf's schedule. He's got San Francisco this week, but then Dallas. Those both project to be shootouts if Seattle is going to be in it. And then you have Philadelphia, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh hit or miss on their defense.
Tennessee is
yeah,
and Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Philadelphia, their defense, pass defense is not great. Like
No.
we just talked about the game earlier.
No,
Mahomes should have thrown for probably 300 and like 2 to 3 touchdowns, but the wide receivers just dropped the ball.
Yeah. Well, and it was also raining. Weather was
raining
too.
sure.
So here's a question I have for you just as we're kind of wrapping up. Because I found this to be true as well. Like I wasn't like a crazy Justin Fields guy. It sort of happened where you get in this place in fantasy where you realize something about a player, you do some research or you watch a game no one else watched, whatever it is, and you defend them one time, and then people are so dogmatic about attacking you about that player that you dig your heels in further, and it ends up that this is this becomes a my guy. For Christian Kirk, is your love forged from that, or was it you always a Christian Kirk guy? Because it feels like because you've always like I put you in a corner and I was like, Calvin Ridley versus Christian Kirk, and then you've just defended Kirk. It's like, no, I think he's the wide receiver one with the Jags the whole season. Like, why is I guess what I'm asking.
I'm a sucker for talented wide receivers. I'm sorry. Like I just think he's a good wide receiver. Like from what I've seen, again, my convictions based off of what I've seen him, even back in Arizona, I didn't think he was a bad wide receiver. Just the way they used him was only as a downfield threat. And so what last year proved to me, him finishing as a wide receiver one proved to me that he is talented, and in the right offense, given the right opportunity, he will be successful. And then up to this point in the season, he's proven the same thing. I've never said he's going to be a wide receiver one. I'm expecting a solid wide receiver 2 numbers from him, which is what he gives you week in and week out. So I'm a sucker for that. And backtracking earlier, I just remembered my thought. I am not just giving players to Michael Smith.
No, you're not.
I am not. We get good deals done. And yes, I gave him Dak Prescott and I think at one point Travis Etienne, and I gave him some good players, but all of them are because we have good trade relationships, So
well, I was projecting on that one because based on who Mike was playing, I was like, I will give you this play. Like I gave him Antonio Gibson for next to nothing because I wanted him to help the pick that I have, the first that's not my own. So I was a little hypocritical. I apologize. I know it's terrible. Well, listen, that is going to do it for the Dynasty Exchange. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We will see you following Thanksgiving week, reacting to Monday Night Football.